Alright, Chapter 4 Belief Systems: The Power to Create and the Power to Destroy. Awaken the Giant Within. Anthony Robbins. Belief systems: the power to create and the power to destroy. Under all that we think lives all we believe, like the ultimate veil of our spirit. Anthony Machado. Antio Machado. He was bitter and cruel, an alcoholic drug addict that was almost killed by himself several times. Today he serves life sentence in prison for the murder of a liquor store cashier who got in his way. He has two sons born mere 11 months apart, one of whom grew up to be just like his dad, a drug addict, and who believed that stealing and threatening others until he, too, was put into jail for attempted murder. His brother, however, a different story. A man who's raising 3 kids, enjoys his marriage, appears to be truly happy. The regional manager of the major national concern. He finds his work both challenging and rewarding. He's physically fit, no alcohol, no drug addictions. These 2 young men who had turned out so differently have grown up in virtually the same environment. But we'd ask privately, unbeknownst to the other, why has your life turned out this way? Surprisingly, both of them provided an exact same answer. Where else could I have become having grown up with a father like that? So often we've seduced into believing that events control our lives, that our environment has shaped us who we are today. No greater lie was ever told. It's not events of the lives that shape us, but our belief that what those events mean. 2 men are shot down in Vietnam in prison with the infamous Ho Lo prison, and they isolated, chained to cement slabs, continuously beating with the rusty shackles and tortured for information. Yet all these men are receiving the same belief of the former, radically different belief about the experience. One man decides of his life in order to additional belief with additional point man custom society. Commit suicide. The other pulls with a brazenly event of the deeper belief in himself, that his fellow man is greater than he has ever had before. Captain Gerald Coffey used the experience to remind people all over the world of the power of the human spirit overcomes virtually any level of pain, any challenge, any problem. 2 women turned 70 years old, yet each takes a different meaning from the event. One knows that her life is coming to an end. To her, 7 decades of living, meaning that the body must have been breaking down, and she'd better start winding up her affairs. To the other woman decides that what a person is capable of at any age depends upon her beliefs and setting her aside for herself. She decides that mountain climbing might be a good sport to begin at age 70. For the next 25 years, she devotes herself to the new adventure of the mastery, scaling some of the highest peaks in the world until the day of the 90s. Hula Cook becomes the oldest woman to ascend Mount Fuji. You see, it's never an environment, it's never events or our lives of meaning, but the meaning we attach to events, how to interpret these shapes today, who we become tomorrow. Beliefs are what they make the difference between the life of joyous contribution, one or more misery and devastation. Beliefs are what separate Mozart with romance, and beliefs what cause some of the individuals to become heroes, and while others lead lives of quiet desperation, while others believe the design, the gilding force that tells us will lead to pain, will lead to pleasure. What some things that happen in your life, the briefs. Brain asks 2 questions. Will this mean pain or pleasure? What to do? Second, what must I do to avoid pain or pleasure? The answer to these 2 of the questions are based on the belief that our belief is driven the organs of generalization about what we've learned and could lead to pain and pleasure. The generalization guide of all our action, thus the direction quality of the lives. Generalization very useful for the simple identification sample apart. For example, we allow what allows us to open the door. We don't look down at the handle, or although we never seen the specific one before, but we generally feel certain that the door will open if you turn turn it right or left. If you push it or pull it, why do you believe this? Simply, the experience with the doors provide enough reference to create a sense of certainty that all allows you to follow through. Without a sense of certainty, would virtually be unable to leave the house, drive with our cars, telephones, do any of the dozens we do in today. Generalization simplify ourselves also allows us to function. Unfortunately, generalization more complex or oversimplifies the simple, sometimes greater calamity beliefs. Maybe you failed to follow through with the various endeavors a few times with your life. Based on them, develop the belief that you are incompetent. Once you believe this is true, that it becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. You may see why even try that I'm not going to follow through anyway. And perhaps you've made a few doors to decision and business and relations have interpreted meaning you always will sabotage yourself, or maybe in school you learn quickly as though the other kids did, rather than considering the idea of the different learning strategy. You might have to decide that learning disabled on another level isn't racial prejudice filled with a wholesome generalization about the entire group of the people. The challenge of all these beliefs to become limitation for the future decisions about who you are and what are capable of, what remember the most of the belief of the generalizations about our past based on the interpretation, pain, and pleasure for the experience of the change threshold. One must do is not consciously decide what we're going to believe. All their beliefs are based on misinterpretation, past experience. 3. Once we adopt the belief, we forget the mere interpretation. We begin to treat ourselves with these realities as if the gospel. In fact, we rarely, if ever, question the long-hold belief that have ever wondered why the people do what they do. Again, you need to remember that human beings are not random creatures. All our actions are a result of the beliefs. What we do with our conscious, unconscious beliefs about lead to pleasure and away from pain. If you want to create a long-term, consistent change of the behaviors, you must change the beliefs you're holding your back. Believe they have the power to create, with the power to destiny. Human beings are awesome ability to take an experience that lives and creates a meaning that disempowers them, or one that can literally save their lives. Some people have taken the pain of their past and said, because of this, I will help the others because I was raped. No one else was harmed again, or because I lost my son or daughter, I will the difference in this world. I'm not something that I wanted to believe, but rather adopt the type of belief, the necessity of them to be able to pick up the pieces that move on to life and live an empowering life. We all have the capacity of the creating meanings of the empower us, but so many of us never tap to recognize that if you don't adopt faith, there's a reason for unexplained tragedies that will begin to destroy or capacitate your truly life. You need to be able to create meaning out of the little life's most painful experience, observed by the psychiatrist Viktor Frankl, as he and other Holocaust victims survived the horrors of Auschwitz and the other concentration camps. Frankl noted that there were special few who were able to make it through all of the hell on earth and shared one thing in common. They were able to endure and transform the experience and find an empowering meaning for the pain. They developed the belief that because they suffered and survived, that they would be able to tell the story, making sure that no human would be able to suffer this way again. Beliefs are not limited to impacting emotional action, but literally changing the body for the matter of moments. I had pleasure interviewing Yale professor, best-selling author Dr. Bernie Siegel, and I was beginning to speak of a powerful belief that Bernie shared with me some of the research he'd done for the people with multiple personality disorders. Critically, with the potency of the people's belief that had become a different person resulted in question command with the nervous system to make measurable changes by biochemistry, with the result of the body that would laterally transform the research eyes that begin to reflect with the new identity of the moment. Studies document the remarkable occurrence of the patient eye color actually changing as their personality changed, the physical marker disappearing, the reappearing, even the disease such as diabetes and high blood pressure coming in depending on the person's belief of the personality of the manifest, the belief of the capacity of the overriding impact of the drugs over the body. While most people believe that the drugs heal, instead of the new signs of the neuroimmunology, the mind's-body relationship, have begun to bear out that many others suspected over the century over their belief of the illness, with the treatment paid with a significant role, maybe even a more significant role than the treating in the self. Dr. Henry Becker of the Harvard University has done extensive research that clearly demonstrated that we often give the credit to the drug where the reality of the patient belief makes the difference. One of the demonstrated with the groundkeeping experiments is 100 medical students were asked to practice for the testing with the two new drugs. One was described them as a super stimulant with a red capsule, the other was super tranquilizer and a blue capsule. Of being noticed if the student with the content of the capsule had been switched. Red capsule was actually barbiturate, and the blue capsule was actually an amphetamine. Yet half of the students developed the physical reactions went along with their expectation, exactly the opposite of the chemical reaction the drug should have produced in their bodies. The students were not even given placebos. They were given actual drugs, but their belief overrode the chemical impact of the drug on their bodies. As Dr. Belcher later stated, drugs' usefulness is a direct result on not only chemical property of the drug, but also patients' beliefs useful effectiveness of the drug. Alright, drugs are always not necessary, but belief of the recovery is always. Orman Cousin. I have an proof of the Norman cousin for almost 15 years. I'm fortunate enough to have the last tape of the interview just 1 month before he passed on. The interview shared a story of how strongly he believed the effect of the physical vibe of the football game in the Montgomery Park, Los Angeles suburb. Several people experimented with some symptoms of food poisoning. They examined the physician to do the cover of the certain soft drink with the dispensing machine because all of the patients purchased some of the prior to becoming ill. An announcement was made over the loudspeaker requesting that no patronize the dispensing machine. So he says some people had to become ill, describing the symptoms. Pandemonium immediately broke out in the stands after the people reached and fainted and drove and people. Even a few people had not even gone near the machine became ill. But ambulance for the local hospital and booming the business of the day. But as it drove back for the fourth of the stadium, transporting a multitude of the stricken fans. When it was discovered that the dispensing machine was not the culprit, people immediately and miraculously recovered. We need to realize that our beliefs are capitalized by the sick and the making the selfie in the moment. Beliefs have been documented to the effect of the immune system. Most important belief that can even give us the resolve of the take of the action, wake of the destroy of the drive of the moments, believe or shaping how to respond, what you've just learned, what you're going to do, what your learning is. In this book, some things we develop the belief of the great limitation and strength of the very belief of the contents of the instant. How we feel about the ability to sing, of the dance, and fix with the car. Do calculus other beliefs that general life that dominate with the vitality expected. Every aspect of either negative or positive, they call the global believers. Global beliefs are giant beliefs that we have about everything in our life, the beliefs, the identities, people, the work, time, money, and life itself from matter. These giant generalizations are also phrased as is, I am, or are. Life is, I am, and people are, as you can imagine, belief that on the size, the scope, the shape of the can, color, every aspect of our life. The good news about this, making one change limited global belief, change a limiting global belief you currently hold and changing virtually every aspect of your life in that moment. Remember, once expected, our beliefs become unquestioned commands of the nervous system that they have power to expand and destroy the possibility of the present and the future. If we want to direct our life, we must take the conscious control of our belief that in order to do this, we first need to understand what they really are and how they are formed. What is the belief anyway? Often we link a life, we talk about the things without having a clear idea of what they are. With my people to treat a belief as if it's a thing. What really all it is a feeling of certainty about something else. If you say the belief that you are intelligent as you really saying, I feel certain that I am intelligent. There's a sense of certainty always have to reach over the lab to produce the intelligent result. We all have the answers inside of the virtually anything, or at least we have the action for the answers we need through others. We often lack our belief of the lack of certainty causes us not to be able to the capacity of the ride resides within us. A simple way to understand the belief of the thinking about the basic building block of an idea. There are lots of ideas you may think of about, but not really believe. Like, let's take for example the idea that you are sexy. Stop for a second and say to yourself, I'm sexy. Now, whether the idea or belief that will become down to the amount of certainty of the feeling of the phrase as you say it. If you think it, well, I'm not really sexy, then when really saying that I don't feel very certainty that I am sexy. How do you turn an idea and belief? Let me offer the simple metaphor to describe the process. You can think of the idea of the being tabletop with no legs. You further representation why the idea doesn't feel certain and believe without any legs. Tabletop won't even stand by observe. So believe with the other hand it has legs but they really believe. I'm simply, how do you know that you're sexy? Isn't it true that hey, you have some reference with the sport, with the idea of some experience of life to back it up? If there's legs with the tabletop solid, you make your belief certain. What are some of the reference experiences that you had? Maybe men and women that you have told that you're sexy, or maybe do you look at yourself in the mirror, compare your image with those of other people consider sexy, say, hey, I look like them. Maybe strangers on the street call you out and wave to you. All those experiences mean nothing to you until you recognize or organize them under the idea that you are sexy, and you do this so the legs make you feel solid about your idea, causes you to begin with a belief, and it also feels uncertainty is now a belief. Once you understand the metaphor, you can begin to see how the beliefs are formed and get a hint of how to change them as well. First off, it's important to know that to develop the belief about anything, you must just find enough legs about the reference experience to build it up. Think about, isn't it true that you have an experience in life now enough of the people that you have gone through with the tough times with other human beings that you really wanted could easily develop the belief that the people are rotten, given a half chance with taking advantage of you? Maybe you don't believe this. Maybe you already discussed it was disempowering, but you don't have the experience back up the idea and make you certain about if you have the want to do. Isn't it true that the experience in life with the references to back up the idea, if you really care about the people and treat them well, they're basically good and will help you too? The question is, which one of these beliefs is true belief? The answer doesn't matter which one is true. The matter is one of the most empowering. Well, all I can find someone to back me up our belief that makes us full of the solid about it. This is human beings are being able to rationalize. This is how human beings are able to rationalize. The key question again, what is the belief of the strengthening weakness, empowering or disempowering us on a daily basis, or what are the possible references in our lives? Certainly we can pull out the personal experience, sometimes with the gathered reference for the information we get with the other people from books and tapes and movies and so on, sometimes with the references based solely on the imagination. Emotionally, intensity feel about any of these references with the definitely with the affect of the strength and width of the leg, with the strongest molds and solid legs are formed in personal experience that we have a lot of emotion attached to because we have their painful and pleasure experience. With the other fact of the number of the references we have, they obviously more of the reference experience supporting the idea, stronger than you believe the will be in it. Do your references have the accurate in order to be willing to use them? No, they can be real, the magic, accurate, inaccurate, the other, or even our own personal experience are solidly, as we feel about them, distorted by our own personal perspective. Because human beings are capable of the distortion and invention of the reference life that we can use the assemble with the belief of the virtually unlimited downside of this, regardless of whatever the reference comes from, we become to accept the real, thus no longer question, and this can have the powerful negative consequences depending on the belief we adopt. By the same token, we have the ability to imagine references to propel us in the direction of our dreams. People that can perceive the image of the smoothing, something vividly enough just that easy with the actually with the experience with it, because the brain tells us the difference between something we vividly imagine and something we actually experience. With enough of emotional intensity, repetition, our nervous experience system and experience something real as even if it has occurred yet, with even the greater achiever the eye of the interviewed has the ability to get themselves to feel certain they could succeed, even though no one before them have accomplished that they have been able to create references where no references exist to achieve the maybe seem to be impossible. Anyone who the computer is likely to recognize the name Microsoft, but most people don't realize that Bill Gates, the co-founder of the company, was not just some genius who got lucky, but a person who put himself on the line with no references back up with his belief. When he found out that the Albuquerque company developed something called the personal computer, the need for the basic software, he called them and promised to deliver, even if he had no such thing at the time. Once he had committed it, he had to find a way. He was able to create something. Sense of certainty was his real genius. Many of the people intelligent that he with certain was able to tap into the resources within a few weeks. He and his partner written a language that he made with the personal computer reality. Then putting himself on the line, finding a way, Bill Gates set in motion the desire, a day of serious events that would change the people that do business, and became a billionaire in the time when he was 30 years old. Certainly carried some power. You know the story of the 4-minute mile, the thousand of the people that believed that it was impossible human running a mile in less than 4 minutes. But in 1954, Roger Bannister broke the imposing relief barrier with a give himself to achieve the impossible, but not merely with physical practice, but constantly rehearsing an event with his mind breaking through the 4-minute barrier so many times with so much emotion, with the intent for the creative avid reference for the became the unquestioned command of the nervous system to reduce of the result of the main people don't even realize the greatest aspect of the breakthrough, what it did for the others. It seemed that no one would ever be able to break the 4-minute mile. Yet within 1 year, Roger breaking this barrier with the 37 other runners also broke it. He experienced provided with the reference strong enough to create a sense of certainty that he could do the impossible. And the year after that, 300 other runners did the same. The belief has become that, for me, that it allows us for the best use of the strength and best means of putting my virtues into action. Andrew Gidd. People so often develop a limiting belief about what they are and what they are capable of. They haven't succeeded in the path of the belief that they won't be able to succeed in the future as a result of their faith. I fear for the pain. They begin to constantly focus on the being realistic. Many people constantly say, let's be realistic, all real living fear of the deathly afraid of them being disappointed again, out of the fear of the developed belief of the confident hesitate, but not give all the consequence to give the limited result. Great leaders are really realistically intelligently accurate, but they are not realistic with the other people. Understanding of the realistic of the one person, thus it's totally different with the realistic for another person based on their the reference to Gandhi believed that he could gain autonomy over the India without violently opposing Great Britain. Something had never been done before. He wasn't being realistic. He certainly proved that to be accurate. By the same token, it certainly was a realistic man to believe that he could world happiness by building a theme park in the middle of the orange grove and charging people to not only for the rides but even to get in. At any time, no such park in the world, yet Walt Disney had the sense of certainty like few people would ever have lived in high optimism transformed circumstances. If you're going to make an error in life, the error on the side of the overestimating the capabilities, obviously, as long as you don't jeopardize your life by those ways, something hard to do, since the human capacities is much greater than most of us would ever dream. In fact, many of us study the focus of the difference between people who deprive the people extremely optimistic. After attempting to learn a new skill, the pessimists are always more accurate about how they did, and the optimist sees the behavior to be more effective than it actually was. Yes, this unrealistic evolution of their own performance, secret future, and success invariable with the optimists eventually end up with mastering the skill of the pessimist fails. Why the optimists are those that, despite having no reference success, even for reference of failure, manage to ignore those references, leaving unassembled such for the cognitive tables I fail, but I cannot see. But instead of the optimist produce the faith reference something. Some of the further imagination, the picture of themselves doing something different the next time they succeed in the spatial capability, a unique focus which allows them to persist until they eventually with a game of distinction to put them over the top. The reason that success eludes most people is they have the insufficient reference to succeed in the past. But an optimist operates with belief such that the past is not equal to the future. The greater leaders as the people who achieve the success in the area of the life, the power of constantly pursuing their vision, even if it details how to achieve it, if they aren't available. If you develop the absolute certain sense of certainty of the power of belief to provide, then you can get yourself to accomplish virtually anything, include those things that other people to certain are impossible. Only in men's imagination does every truth find effective the undeniable existence. Imagination, not invention, and is the supreme master of the art of the life. Joseph Conrad. One of the biggest challenges of anyone's life is knowing the interpretation of failures, how to deal with the defeat, with the determinant, with the cause, with the shape, with the density, with the environment, with how we'll deal with the adversity, with the challenge, with the shape of our life, with more almost with anything else. Sometimes we get our many reference for the main pleasure for the began with the assemble those with the belief that they're not putting them to make them things better. But some people begin to feel that the things are the pointless, for the helpless and worthless. No matter what they try, they'll lose the way. There's that belief that must never be indulged in if what we ever expect to succeed in achieving in our belief of the belief strips of their personal destroy their ability to act with the psychology there, but in the name of the destructive mindset of the learned helplessness. When people experience enough failure of setting of something, you're surprised how few times is there for some people that perceive their efforts of futile develop the terminal discouragement of learned helplessness. Dr. Martin Seldrum, University of Pennsylvania, has done an incentive for the research created the learned helplessness for the book of the learned optimism. He reports on three specific things: the patterns of the belief that cause the feel helplessness to destroy virtually every aspect of our life. That he calls these categories permanence, pervasiveness, and personal. Maybe the country has achieved that has succeeded despite of the running and a huge problem, the barrier of the difference between them and those who would give the role of the realm, the belief of the permanence of the lack there and their or lack there of their problems or of the problems. Achievers rarely, if ever, seem the permanent, while those will fail to see even if the smallest problems are as permanent. Once you adopt the belief that there's nothing you can do to change something simply because you have not done up to until the now has changed it, if you struggle to take the percentage poison in your own system. 8 years ago, when I hit rock bottom, I despaired every turning things around. I thought my problems were permanent. I closed things with emotional depth that I had experienced, but I learned to link such pain with the holding of the belief that I was able to destroy that I never indulged it. And again, you must be able to do the same thing ever to yourself with anyone you can able about starting to expose the belief of the problem permanent. It's time to immediately shake off the person or that person loose. No matter what happens in your life, you got to be able to believe this too shall pass. that if you're persisting, you'll find a way. Second difference between winners and losers are the optimists or those who are the pessimists, or they believe that about the pervasiveness or the pervasiveness of the problem. So, achieve it, never see the problem as being pervasive. That is one problem control of the whole life. They always see it as, well, it's just the little challenges with my eating pattern. They don't see I'm the problem because I overeat my whole life and is destroyed. Conversely, those who are the pessimistic, those who've learned helplessness have developed the belief that because they screwed up in one area, they are a screw up. They believe that because of the financial chain of the whole life, the down destroyed, the kids won't take care of the spouses, would leave me, and so on. But pretty soon, with the general life of the things out of the control field, with the completely helpless, mention the impact, the permanence of the praise, together the solution, with the both of the permanence and the base is to see something you cannot control. Is to see if you can take control of your life. Beginning to take action in that direction. As you can do this, some of these limited beliefs will disappear. Finally, the category of belief, which Solomon calls personal, I refer to as the problem being personal. If it does the failure of the challenge to modify our approach, but rather as a problem ourselves, the personally the fact that immediately feel overwhelmed. After all, how did we change our entire life? This isn't more difficult than just changing your actions in a particular area by being aware of adapting the belief of the problem being personal. He is inspired to can get you beating yourself up. Alright, hold these limits of belief equivalent and systematically ingestion minute the dose of the arsenic that over time will build up the fatal dose. While we don't immediately die, we start emotionally a moment where we partake, so we have to avoid them at all costs. Remember, as long as you believe something, your brain operates an automatic pilot, filtering an input with the environment with a searching reference. Validate your belief regardless of what it is. It's the mind that maketh the good ill, and the make the wretch or unhappy rich and poor. Edmund Spencer. How to change a belief. All personal breakthroughs begin with a change of belief. So how do we change the most effective way to get your brain to associate massive pain into the old belief? You must feel deep in your gut that not only will the belief cause you pain in the past, but the costing of the present ultimately can only bring you into the future the most associated tremendous pleasure to idea of adopting new and empowering belief, the basic power of the reviewing and again with the creating change within our lives. Remember, we can never forget everything we do either out with the need to avoid pain and the other design gain pleasure, and if we associate enough pain with anything, we will change. The only reason we have the belief or something that would link with the massive pain and not believing that massive pleasure to keep it alive. Secondly, create doubt. If you've really honestly with yourself some of the beliefs that you used to have defined in your heart soul years that you've almost embarrassed to admit it today, what happened? Something caused you to doubt. Maybe the new experience, maybe the counterexample of the past belief, perhaps some of the Russians found that there were people just like you, no part of some evil empire, not part of some evil empire. I think of the Americans today feel genuine compassion that Soviet citizens because they seem as people are struggling to take care of their families, part of what changed our perception, exchanging programs in which we actually meet the Russians and say how much they share in common. We can gain experience in which causes the question interpreted with the patterns certainly began to shake our reference legs. However, the next new experience with the end in itself does not guarantee the change of belief. People can have the experience with the run directly when the counter to their belief, yet and reinterpret it any way, and they order with the bolster with the conviction. Saddam Hussein demonstrated during the Persian Gulf War, insisting that he was winning despite the destruction surrounding him. The one over the personal level, the woman had won over the my senator started to experience some of the rather unique mental emotional states, claiming that I was a Nazi, poisoning the people in the room and invisible gas flowing through the air conditioning vents. And as I tried to calm her down and slowing my speech patterns, seeing her approach causing someone to relax, she pointed, "See, it's already beginning to slow your speech." No, Banner, what happened? She began to pay. Used to back up the radiation. They were already being poisoned. Eventually, I was able to break her pattern. How do you do that? We talk about that in the next chapter. New experience, trigger change, only that caused the questions of our belief. Remember, when we believe something, we no longer question it in any way the moment. We begin to honestly question our belief and no longer feel absolutely certain about them. We are beginning to shake with the references, legs of the cognitive table to start with the loose over the feeling of the absolute certainty that I have ever doubted the ability to do something, how to do it. You probably ask yourself some poor questions like, what if I screw up or what doesn't work? What if I don't like? What if they don't like me? My question's obvious for the tremendous empowering review. They examine the validity, benefits of the valid, just blindly accepting the fact many of the people supported information received the others for the failed the question to me at the time. We failed the question at the time. If we scrutinize them, we may find that we've unconsciously believed for the years may be based on the false presumptions. If you use the typewriter or computer, you surely appreciate that, for example, that we think of the traditional agreements of the delay of the number symbol of 99% of all type of devices universally accepted around the world by the way of arrangement with the characters known as the QWERTY. A type that you know that the character of the top left row of the keyboard, obviously with the arrangement of the device with the most significant configuration on the bolster typing speed right now. To the bolster typing speed, right? Most people never question it after QWERTY. It has existed 120 years, but in fact QWERTY is almost the most intelligent configuration you can imagine. Many problems, such as the Dvorak simplified keyboard, have proven to cut errors and increase speed radically, but the truth is QWERTY is deliberately designed to slow down the human typist at a time where the typewriter pans moved so slowly that they wouldn't jab the operator to spit and type too fast. Why have we clung to QWERTY keyboard for 120 years? In 1882, almost everyone typed with the hunt and peck method. The moment it had to develop the 8-finger type method was the challenge for the typing contest with another teacher and representative, so hired the professional typist, a man who memorized the choir's keyboard advantage, the memorization 8-finger method, who was able to beat the competitor using a 4-finger hunt and peck method who used only the 4-finger hunt and peck method on different keyboard. So from there on, QWERTY became the standard of the speed. No one even questioned the reference anymore to see how valid it was. How many other beliefs do you have on the daily? Who are you that can or can't do? How many people should act? What compatibilities your kids have that you're failing to question, and to empowering beliefs you have begun to accept the limit to life without even be aware of this. If you question anything else, if eventually they begin to do, if it includes the things they absolutely believe, beyond the shadow of the doubt years ago, they have a unique opportunity working with the U.S. Army, where they negotiated the contract to produce certain training times for a specialized area. My work was so successful that I went through top secret clearance and had a chance to model one of the top officials of the CIA. A man who worked with his way up from the bottom of the organization. Let me tell you this: the skills that he and others like him have developed in shaking the another person's convictions and changing the beliefs are absolutely astounding. They create an environment that causes people to doubt what they think, what they also believe, and they gave them a new idea of the experience to support the adoption of the belief, watching the speed in which they can change someone's belief, and it's almost scary that it's the most powerful, fascinating. Learning to use these techniques on myself to be able to eliminate the disempowering beliefs, replace them, empowering ones are believe at a different level. Emotional certainty, intensity is important knowledge of how to intensify, or they really are. In fact, classify belief into 3 categories: opinions, belief, and convictions. An opinion is something we feel relatively certain about, but the certainty is only temporarily because they change easily. Cognitive, the tabletop is support, but the will be unverified with the reference level based on the impression. For example, many people originally perceived that George Bush was based solely on his tone voice, but when they saw I was able to galvanize support with the leaders around the world and effectively deal with the Saddam Hussein invasion of Kuwait, there was clear shift of the public opinion polls. Bush soared one of the highest level of public popularity of any president in modern history. By the time you read the paragraph, the cultural opinion would have been changed, such as the nature of opinion that easily swayed and usually based on the fact if you reference permanent comparison with the focus on the moment. A belief, on the other hand, is a form beginning to develop with a much larger base of the reference legs, especially reference legs about which with a strong emotion the reference give the absolute sense of certainty about something. And again, as I said before, the reference can come variety of the forms, anything from a personal experience, the information we can take, and the other sort of even things we'd imagine vividly. People who believe at a strong level of certainty, they often close the new input with a button, with a report, with a communication, with a possible, they interpret it with a pattern, over the closing off with a get, with a question, with a reference, the beginning, allow with the new input, with the creates enough, with the doubt, with the dead, stabilize with the reference, with the make of the room, with the new belief, with the conviction, however the ellipse of the belief, with the primarily because of the emotional intensity of the person. Links to the idea of the person whole with the conviction does not only feel certain but angry with the conviction, and they even question a person with the conviction, unwilling to ever ask question of the reference, evident for a moment, but totally resistant to new input over the point of the session. For example, the relative of the room, the age of the held of the conviction of the view of the God is the only correct one. They will even kill to maintain those beliefs of the conviction. A true believer that have been exploited would be saving this cloaking with the murders for intent with the under holy guises. He called the group of the people with the Guinean to poison their own children and themselves with drinking cyanide laced Kool-Aid in the direction of the Messianic madman Jim Jones. Of course, fervent conviction of the exclusive property of fanatics that belongs to anyone with a high enough degree of the commitment, the dedication, idea of the principle, and the call, for example, someone that disagrees with the practice, undergo with the nuclear testing, with his belief that by someone who takes the action, even an action other does not appreciate or approve. Such a demonstration and protest march of the facility has conviction. Someone have the be well with the state of the public education has a belief that someone actually volunteers for the literacy program to make the difference has a conviction. Someone that fantasizes about owning an ice hockey team has an opinion about their desire. But someone who whatever it takes to get there, gather necessary resources to buy the franchise has a conviction. What is the difference? Clearly, it's an action one that was willing to be taken. In fact, someone with a conviction passionate about the belief that even willing to risk rejection, making a fool of themselves for the sake of their own conviction. Probably the sense of the bigger factor separating the belief and the conviction, though the conviction has usually triggered the significant emotional events that during the brain links up to unless I believe I will suffer the past pain, I will never change this. If I were to change this belief, then I would give up my entire identity, everything in my life that said. For years, hold the conviction and become the crucial one of the person for the very survival of the dangerous became and anytime we're not willing to look into the considered possibility belief that an hypocrite who trap ourselves in rigidity could ultimately condemn this long future term. Same time, it's more appropriate to have the belief in something rather than conviction. On the positive side, conviction, the passion of the inspires of the empower us become able to compel to act. According to Dr. Robert P. Absalon, the professor of the psychology political science at Yale University, beliefs are like possessions. Convictions are simply more valued possessions, which are allowed individuals to passionately work toward either larger scale individual completion of the goals and project wishes and desires. One of the best things you can do with the creative mastery of the art and mastery in any area of your life is the release of the belief of the level of conviction. Remember the conviction of the power to drive you with the push for the all of the kind of the obstacles. Believe you can do this well with some of the area of your life that may require add with emotional intensity conviction. For example, the conviction never to let yourself become overweight with a book about making consistently a healthy life. Your choices allowing you to get more enjoyment out of your life, perhaps even the saving you from a heart attack with the conviction that you are an intelligent person. You can also find the way to turn things and they can easily steer them. They're some of the toughest over the time in your life. Alright, so how do you create conviction? Start with a basic belief. 2, really reinforce your belief, adding new and more powerful resources or references. And for example, let's say you decide never to eat a meal again. 2, strengthening your resolve to talk to people who have chosen the vegetarian vegan lifestyle when the reasons prompted the change of the diet will have consequences for the health and other areas of lives. In addition to the study of the physiological impact of the animal protein has a more reference developed, more emotional reference, the stronger you with the conviction will become. 3, then find a trigger and event and also create one of your own associated with yourself fully by asking what will it cost me if I don't, and question the created emotional intensity for you. For example, if you develop conviction never to be absolute, never to use drugs, make the pain consequence for the drug abuse feel the real to you, the viewing films, or better yet, visiting a shelter, see firsthand with the devastation wrought with the drug abuse. You vowed to give up smoking, visit the intensive care unit wing of the hospital to observe emphysema of the patients, convicted with the oxygen-intensive view and an X-ray with the smoker's black lung, the kind of experience of the power to push you over the edge. Establish true conviction. 4, finally take action. Each action you take strengthens your commitment, raises the level of emotional intensity and conviction. One of the challenges of convictions is that you are often based with the people's enthusiasm for the relief. Some often people will sometimes everybody will believe something everybody else believes. This is known as the psychological social proof. Social proof is not always actual proof. When people are not sure that they do look into the other guidance, Dr. Robert Cialdini's book Influence described the classic experiment with someone that illustrated the subject benefits with while the two people the psychological plans ignore the cries to help keep it walking. Subject does not know whether to respond. Pleased or not, when he sees the other two people that acts if nothing is wrong, he decides that the cries of the helping are insignificant and ignores them as well. Using social proof is a great way to limit their life that makes it just like everybody else. Some of the strongest social proof of the people, the information that they get with the expert, they always read the things of the healthier healers about the years. It wasn't long of the most up to date, but the doctors believe the absolute, with the curative, of the property of the leeches, and or our own generation. Doctors had pregnant women a soothing sounding medication, morning sickness benediction, which sounds like a benediction, which turned out to be linked with the bird effects. However, the doctors prescribing the drug because of the drug company's pharmaceutical Edwards gave the certainties that the drug was available to lessen. What's the lesson? Trusting experts blindly is not well advised. Don't blindly accept everything I say, but either consider it in the context of your life. Does not make sense to you. Sometimes the evidence for your son's consensus can be trusted, in the story that Carpacius illustrates in the days of seminal polish astronomer. Everyone knows the sun moves around the earth, but why? Because anyone could walk outside and point up to the sky and say, see, the sun has moved across the sky. Obviously, the earth is the center of the universe, but in 1543, Carpacius developed the first accurate model of our sun-based solar system. He likes our giants. He likes other giants through the ages, but he had courage to change the wisdom of the expert, eventually in the truth of their theories gaining acceptance of the general populace, although not during his lifetime. Heart pain is the ultimate tool for shifting belief. Again, it is still powerful. The way to change belief, the greatest illustration power to change belief occurs when Sally Jesse Raphael showed with a brave woman that stood before the studio in the world. The corner audience renounces her alliance with the Ku Klux Klan. Ironically, she had been same show only a month before, participating in a panel of the KKK women railing against all who didn't share their convictions about race, angrily shouting with a racial mixing, emotional, economically, or socially, with the downfall of the country and its people. What made the belief change so drastically? Three things. The first young woman, named the others, during the original show, had stood up and cried and pleaded with them for understanding. Her husband and child were Hispanic. She sobbed that she could not believe that a group of people could be so hateful. Second, flying home, she yelled at herself, who appeared with her who had appeared with her, yet didn't share her views, for embarrassing her on national television. The rest of the woman chastises him for being disrespectful. Quoted him from the Bible, "Thou shalt honor thy mother and father." 16-year-old son responded by saying God certainly didn't intend for him to respectively evil she was espousing, and immediately got off the plane in Dallas and vowing never to come home again and again. As the woman continued her flight home, her mind raced over the day's events, and also began to think about what war of the country was fighting in the Middle East. She remembered another member of the audience had to say to her that day, "Young men and women of color are over there fighting not only for themselves but also for you." She thought about her son. She loved him. How spiteful that she had been with him. Would she allow the brief exchange of the words to be their last, even though it was too painful to bear? She had to make a change immediately. As a result of the experience, she told the audience she received the message from God, which she had heeded immediately, to quit the Ku Klux Klan and begin love to all people equally, the brothers and sisters. And certainly she will miss their friends. She abstractized from the group. She would say that her soul was now cleansed, and she began her life with a new and clear conscience. It's vital to examine our belief of the consequences to make of their empowering of the how do you know, but the belief is the opposite answer of the find someone to believe the resolve of the truly want your life. People that are role models who can give you some of the answers you seek. Invariably behind all success people lies a specific set of empowering beliefs. The way to expand our life, the model lives of our people already succeeding. And it's personal, it's powerful, it's fun, and it's these people that are available all around you. The matter of the answering question, the belief of the most different, the whatever belief that you separate from the others. Years ago, I read a book called Meetings with the Remarkable Men used with these type theme that has shaped my life since I've become the hunter in excellence, and constantly seeking the leading of the men over the women and culture to discover the belief and values and strategies of achieving the success. 2 years ago, to develop the Power Talk, my monthly audio magazine, in which I interview these giants. In fact, many of the key distinctions I'm sharing with you in this book were made as a result of interviews some of the people that are finding particular areas of the endeavor. By having commitment to share the interviews and new thoughts within the summary of the national best-selling books within each month, I've developed a consistent plan, not only empowering other people to constantly improving myself as well. I'm really happy to help you in your modeling success people through my program. But remember, you're not limited to, but the models are there that you need are surrounding you in every day, single day. We are what we think, and all that we arise with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make up our world. For almost a decade, I've talked to people living in my living health seminars about the direct correlation between the high percentage of animal protein in typical American diet and the incident of the national top killer of the heart disease and cancer. By doing this, contradicted one of the beliefs that the most significantly shaped the physical destiny in the past 35 years. The four basic food groups that play on the recommended general daily serve of meat and chicken and fish. Yet today, scientists now establish shadow of a doubt the direct relation between eating animal protein and being at risk of developing heart disease and cancer. In fact, 3,000 members of the physician committee responsible for medicine asked the Department of Agriculture to drop meat, fish, and poultry, eggs, and milk products to recommended daily allowances, along with the government itself, considering changing the four basic food groups to six, regulating meat, chicken, and fish to define just a tiny proportion of the whole. Massive shift of the belief that caused the outrage in many of the quarters. I believe the following pattern we'll see through the history throughout the culture of this. Simplify this. As German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer stated, all truth goes through three steps. First, it's ridiculed. Second, it's violently opposed. And finally, it's accepted self-evident. These ideas of animal protein used to be ridiculed, but now they're violently opposed. Eventually, they accepted it, but not until a lot more of the people who became sick and even died because of the limiting belief of how important acceptable amount of the animal protein is for their bodies. In business, we have the set of the false belief leading us down the road of economic frustration, saying some of the potential disasters our economy faces changes in virtually every sector. Why I have one clue. The article read for the March 1991 Forbes magazine. The article described two cars, Chrysler and Plymouth Laser, and the Mitsubishi and Eclipse. Note that Chrysler's average only 13 sales per dealership over their car. Mitsubishi average 100. You may say that what else? The Japanese are beating the pants off of the American companies and the Southern cars, but the unique thing about these two cars is that they are exactly the same. They are built in the partnership between the two companies. The only difference between the Laser and the Eclipse is the name and the company who's selling it. How can this be? I also have the glass of the research of the investigation. Cause of the discrepancy in sales has shown that people who want to buy Japanese cars because they believe they are greater quality. This problem causes its false belief that American company cars are same quality, but because it's the very same car. Why would a consumer believe this? Obviously, because of the Japanese, they've created a reputation for the quality of the provided, even numerous references to back it up, even though at the point where no longer questions validity. I'm surprised with the Japanese commitment to the increasing quality event actually resulted in American export. The person, Dr. W. Edwards Deming, in 1950, owned quality expert was brought to Japan, and General MacArthur was frustrated with the war-ravaged Japanese industrial base, which he couldn't even account for the being able to complete a phone call request. The Japanese Union scientist and engineer Deming began to train Japanese in total quality control principles. When you hear this, does it immediately think it refers to the monitoring of the quality of physical product? Nothing could be rather further from the truth. Deming taught the Japanese 14 principles, basic core belief of the foundation virtually all decisions made of every successful major multinational Japanese corporation that is today. The core belief simply is that the constant, never-ending commitment with the consistent increase of the quality of their business every single day would give them the power to dominate the markets of the world, taught of the quality of the not just matter of the meeting with certain standards, but rather was living, breathing process of never-ending improvement. If Japanese would live the principle that he have taught and promised them, within 5 years they would flood the world with quality products, which within a decade or two became one of the world's dominant economic powers. Many thought that Deming's proclamations were crazy. The Japanese took that him a word today that they referred to as the father of Japanese miracle. In fact, with every son of the 1950s, the highest honor of a Japanese company can receive the National Deming Prize of the Award is given only with the on national television. It is given the acknowledgement of the company to represent the highest level of increase in the quality products served with management workers support through Japan. In 1983, the Ford Motor Company hired Dr. Deming to conduct the Sears management seminars. One of the attendees was Donald Patterson, who would later become the chairman of Ford, and put Deming's principle for the practice of the company. Patterson decided, we need this man to turn out our company around. At the time, Ford was losing billions of dollars per year. Once Deming was brought in to change the traditional Western belief form, how we could increase the volume and cut our costs, and how it was increase the quality in what we're doing, do it in such a way that it would not cost more than a long term for, or recognizes the focus for the make quality with the top priorities as reflected with the verse advertising solely quality is a job by implementing Deming's system forward within 3 years, move with staggering deficit to dominate industry position by $6 billion profit. How did they do it? They found American perception of Japanese qualities, frustration, how much to achieve. For example, the Ford contract with the Japanese company for the half of the transmission and one of the cars ordered to keep up the volume and the profit they found with the American consumer to demand a Japanese transmission. In fact, they were willing to put their names on the waiting list, they even paid for more money for them. They upset many of the executive staff of the Ford, whose first reaction was, well, it's merely a false belief that the part of the people in our culture, they are conditioned to respond this way, but their Deming supervision of the transmission were tested, they found the fact that the Ford transmission was but much louder and broke down much more often, and returned more often to the Japanese transmission, virtually no trouble, no vibration, no sound. Demings taught the members of the Ford term quality always costs less. Quality always costs less. These were the directly opposite with most people to believe. They could only achieve a certain level of quality before costs got out of hand. When the experts took the Ford transmission apart, measured all the parts, they found all of them met the standards of the set forth in the Ford manual, but the same standard that had been set in the Japanese, but the measure for the Japanese transmission, they found virtually no measurable differences among them. In fact, the transmission had been brought to the laboratory, measured under a microscope in order to detect the difference. Would the Japanese company hold themselves with a highly standard quality, even with the contract required the belief of the quality cost left of the creative quality product that would not have justified with the customer, but a loyal customer would be willing to wait the line, pay much more money for the product. They were operating the same core belief that propelled them one of the top market position in the world, the commitment to never-ending improvement, the constant increase of the quality of life of their customer. The belief was an American export, one I believe would need to repatriate in order to change the direction of economic future. One toxic belief that the destroying economic strategy of the nation of the Demings called the managing the visible number. The conventional corporate belief that the profits are made by cutting costs and increasing revenues. A notable example that occurred with Lincoln Townsend tech charge Chrysler during the industry-wide sale slump. Townsend immediately tried to increase revenues, but mostly important, he cut costs. How? He fired two-thirds of the engineering staff short-term, and it looked like they made a right decision. Probably shut up, and he was dubbed a hero. But within a few years, Chrysler was again in financial straits. What happened? Well, there was certainly wasn't any one factor, but long-term, the decision Townsend made had some destroying the base of the quality upon the company's success depended on. Often the very people who were injuring our company are rewarded because they are produced results in the short term. Sometimes we treat symptoms of the problem with a neutral cause. We go to be careful with the interpretive result. By contrast, the most important factors of the turning Ford Motor Company was around when the design staff came up with a new car called the Taurus. The quality of the car set the new standard for the Ford consumers bought it in droves. What can we learn about all this? The belief that hold the business within life controls all of our decisions, therefore our future. One of the most important global beliefs that you and I can adapt. Believe in order to succeed by happily will be constantly improving the quality of our lives and constantly growing and expanding. In Japan, understanding the principle well with the fact of the business result of the Demings influence of the world with the constant with the discussion business for the representation. Word is kaizen. Word literally means constant improvement of the world with the constant even in their language. Often word kaizen of the trade division, the kaizen of the production line, kaizen of the personal relations, the result of the constant looking at how to improve the way of the kaizen produce the principle of the gradual improvement. The single improvements above the Japanese understand the refinement of daily begin to create compound enhancements at levels of people would never dream of. The Japanese have the saying, if a man has not been seen for 3 days, his friend should take a good look at him and see what change have been fallen on him. Amazingly, but not surprisingly, we have no equivalent word for the case in English. The more I begin to see the impact of the case in Japanese business culture, early life, the organizing principle, tremendous impact for my own life, my own commitment to constantly improve, to constantly raise my own standards, quality of life was kept to me both happy and successful. I realized that we all need the word anchor to ourselves, the focus, constant, never-ending improvement. Create a word encoded with the meaning and the creative way of the thinking, and the words are consistent, making the fabric and we think and affect our own decision. A result of the understanding created a simple mnemonic kanai, produce kanai, which stands for constant and never-ending improvement. I believe the level of acceptance and experience within the direct proportional level of the commitment of the kanai, constant and never-ending improvement. The constant never-ending improvement. The constant never-ending improvement. Your kanai is not a principle related to merely business, but every aspect of our lives. In Japan often talks of company-wide control and believe that we focus on the constant, never-ending improvement in our business, canceling never-ending improvement in our personal relation, constant, never-ending improvement in spiritual connection, can I in our health, can I in our finances. How can we make constant, never-ending improvement in each of these areas, thus make life an incredible adventure on which they are looking forward to the next level? Constant, never-ending improvement is true discipline and just to be practiced that everyone once in a while will feel like it. It must be a constant commitment backed upon action. Constant and never-ending improvement is gradual every minute with a consistent improvement that over long-term sculptures masterpiece colossal proportions that will ever be visited the Grand Canyon. You will never know what I'm talking about. You will witness an awe-inspiring beauty produce millions of year gradual chain of the Colorado River, the numerous tributaries continually chiseled rock to create one of the seven natural wonders of the world. Most people never feel secure because they're always worried will either lose their job or lose money with already have, lose their spouse, lose their health, and so on. The only true security in life comes knowing that every single day you're improving yourself in some way, that you're increasing caliber, who you are, and those are valuable to your company and your friends and your family. I don't worry about maintaining quality of life because you're Day, I work on improving it. I constantly strive and learn to make it a new, powerful distinctions about ways to add value to other people's lives that give me a sense of certainty that I can always learn and I can always expand, I can always grow. Can I? And can I doesn't mean never experiencing challenge. In fact, it can only improve something if the realize it's not quite right yet, nothing yet level it should be. Purpose can I discovers problems making and the handling that there becomes crisis. After all, the best time to kill a monster is still when it's still little, integral part of the personal commitment of the can I. End of each day, I ask myself these questions: what have I learned today? What do I contribute to improve? What do I enjoy? And if every day I constantly improve the ability to enjoy life, the experience at the level of the richest most people never even dreamed of. I'm going to cut the chapter there.